You're not crazy. The shelves are half empty. Shell sent a notice. Mobil sent a notice. Toyota told its dealers switch your customers to a heavier oil weight that's also running out. You saw it. The price didn't add up. The shelf wasn't full. Nobody on cable news is going to tell you why. So let's go. There is a war going on. You knew there was a war. Your news told you America was winning. Your news told you Iran was on its knees. Your news told you the Strait of Hormuz was open and the world was safe. I got news for you. Your news lied. Pun intended. The Strait of Hormuz has been closed for 80 days. Tankers anchored, oil sitting in metal at sea, going nowhere. Qatar can't move its gas. Saudi Arabia can't move its oil. India is rationing fuel. Australia is short. Japan is hurting. South Korea is worse. Wherever you are watching this, your country is somewhere on that list. You just haven't been told yet. That's why your shelf is half empty. That's why your gas bill is about to make you sick. That's the war they told you America won. Now here comes the punchline. They want to go again. The hawks in Washington, the generals with the serious faces, the cable anchors who can't stop saying the word decisive. They want round two. They want to finish the job. Watch what I'm about to show you. Then ask yourself why no anchor on any major news network in any major country has shown this to you before. The F-35 is the most expensive fighter jet ever built. Combat radius, how far it flies out and comes home without refueling, is 550 miles, give or take. The cruise missile it carries reaches another 500 miles after launch. Add these up. 1,000 miles of reach on a good day. Now look at a map. The American air bases that are not in Saudi Arabia or Qatar, the ones Pentagon can't actually use without asking permission, sit over 800 miles from Tehran. Some targets they want to hit are 1,200 miles out. So do the math. 1,000 miles of reach, 800 miles minimum to the target. The plane can't get there and come home without refueling. The flagship American fighter jet, paid for by an American taxpayer who never agreed to any of this, sitting on a runway in Jordan, cannot reach the country the Pentagon already spent 39 days trying to bomb, without permission from two royal families that don't pick up the phone anymore. Let that sit. The most powerful military on this planet, Lockheed Martin, charged the American public $80 million per airframe. The American public paid. You are going to pay too. Through the gas price, through the food price, through the cost of everything that moves through the choke point they can no longer protect. That's the bill that's coming. Wherever you live, whatever passport you carry. Now, the smart guy in your comments section says, but Trump can't force the Saudis. Yeah, about that. Bloomberg dropped a story this week. Quiet. Page B12. Nobody read it. The leader of the United Arab Emirates, the most pro-war Arab on the planet, personally called the rulers of Bahrain, Qatar, and Saudi Arabia during the last war. He asked them to form an Arab coalition against Iran. Every one of them said no. Read that again. The Emirates couldn't get a single Arab country to join an anti-Iran coalition. Not one. Not even the small ones. Not even the ones America has been bankrolling for 50 years. That's the leash you thought Washington had. That's not even a leash anymore. That's just rope. On the ground. Connected to nothing. Pause here for a moment. If this is the kind of thing you actually want to know, the stuff cable news won't say out loud on any continent, the Substack link is in the description. So is Patreon. Pick whichever stings less. If you run a business and you need real geopolitical risk analysis for what's coming, supply chains, energy contracts, exposure to the Gulf, the Calendly link is in the description as well. That's where analysis goes deeper and nobody is watching. Now, the capitulation. This week, two things happened that historians will mark. You didn't hear about either one. Of course, you didn't. Leon Panetta, the former director of the CIA, the former Secretary of Defense, the man who literally ran America's wars, sat down on camera and said this: Iran holds a gun to the head of the United States. That's not a podcaster. That's not a Substack guy. That's the man who used to sign their strike orders, telling you on camera that the empire he served just got beaten. Then The Atlantic published Robert Kagan. You may not know the name. Well, you should. Kagan wrote the Iraq War. Kagan wrote the Libya War. Kagan wrote the doctrine that said America must run the planet because America deserves to run the planet. Every dead soldier in the last 25 years, American, Iraqi, Libyan, Syrian, Yemeni, walked into a war that came off Robert Kagan's keyboard. Last week, he published a piece. The argument, stripped down, was checkmate. The man who wrote the wars wrote the obituary. 25 years of dead kids, cities flattened, $2 trillion, the reputation of the most powerful country on earth. He cashed the checks. He sold the books. He got the speaking gigs. He got the think tank chair. And now he writes, quietly, in The Atlantic, where nobody who voted for any of it will read it, that they lost. That's not a confession. That's a man putting on a different jacket before the next photo shoot. But here's the part that matters for you. When the architect writes the obituary while the building is still standing, the building is done. The deception is over. The lie has gotten too expensive even for the liars to maintain. That's what last week was. Now the smart guy in your comments comes back. Fine, America can still drop bombs. Sure, it can. And every bomb dropped without a victory makes the wall higher. Every empty strike is another receipt. By the third one, the dollar starts pricing this in. By the fifth one, the world stops pretending the cop has a gun. By the seventh, your prime minister, your president, your chancellor, whichever one runs your country, starts asking quietly whether to keep saluting in public. The bombs don't fix the problem. The bombs are the problem. And now we get to the part nobody is announcing. There is a new security architecture being built right now for the Persian Gulf, the most important waterway on the planet, where a third of the world's oil moves, where your gas comes from wherever you live, where the cost of everything you put in your tank gets decided. It's being built behind closed doors. No press release, no State Department briefing, no primetime exclusive. Want to know who's leading the negotiation? Pakistan. I'll wait while that lands. Pakistan, the country whose name half of American cable news cannot even pronounce, the country Washington used as a parking lot during the Afghan war, the country Washington abandoned the second it didn't need it. That Pakistan. I'm giving you this with the appropriate distance. The source is Colonel Larry Wilkerson, former Chief of Staff at the State Department, citing Pakistani intelligence. Single source. Take it as direction of traffic, not settled fact. But notice what makes it credible. Pakistan has a bilateral defense treaty with Saudi Arabia from the 1980s. Pakistan helped build the Saudi nuclear program with the understanding that if the Saudis ever needed a warhead, Islamabad would deliver one. Same week, the Iranian foreign minister flies to Beijing right before the Trump-Xi summit. Same week, Putin announces he is flying to Beijing on Wednesday. Same week, Netanyahu's planned trip to Islamabad gets quietly postponed because his government is collapsing. Every arrow points the same way. Something is being built. The Americans are not in the room. The most strategically important waterway on the planet is being redrawn. New rules, new guarantors, new referees, and there is no American chair at the table. Read that twice. 50 years of American empire in the Gulf. 50 years of bases. 50 years of weapons sales. 50 years of telling the Arabs to jump and watching them ask how high. Over. Not because the president signed a treaty, Not because a Congress voted, not because anybody in Washington decided, because the people who used to ask how high stopped picking up the phone. Three things to watch this week. Wednesday, Putin lands in Beijing. Watch what gets said. Watch what gets signed. Watch the photographs. If Gulf security comes up on camera, even sideways, this architecture is closer to public than I'm willing to say out loud right now. 2. Watch Riyadh. Watch Doha. They won't say no in public. They'll just stop saying yes. A delay is a no. A condition is a no. A non-answer is a no. Watch them slow walk Washington to death. 3. Watch the Knesset. Netanyahu's confidence vote is moving. If it accelerates, he does something desperate. If it stalls, the lie keeps walking. Either way, somebody pays. That's where the pressure lives. Not in the headlines, not on cable, not in the press briefings. Down here. If you've made it this far, you're exactly who this channel was built for. Subscribe before the algorithm buries this when the next round of headlines arrives. Drop a comment with the topic you want next week. The Pakistan thing, the Saudi pivot, the Israeli vote. Tell me. Loudest topic wins. And remember why this matters. The empire that can't bomb has to negotiate. The empire that has to negotiate has to share. The empire that has to share is no longer the empire. That's not a prediction. That's already happening. Between the empty shelf in your store and the handshakes in Beijing. The only thing missing is somebody at the head of the table to say it out loud. They never will. That's why you're here. This is a wrap for today, my friends. I'll see you next week.